Ready? It's parable time again, so if you have ears to hear, let them hear. Let's take a look at it.
Whoa.
All right. You started going, I was like, I don't know where this is going.
Sometimes, in the words of Michael Scott, you just start a sentence and
See where it goes.
see where it goes. You just let it find itself as he goes. All right.
You are watching the Beyond Sunday podcast.
Hey, everybody. Today we're taking a look at another parable. We're going to be looking at the parable of the laborers, or sometimes called the workers in the vineyard. We find this one in Matthew chapter 20. So here we go. This one's a bit of a chunk to get through this parable. Last time we talked about how sometimes they're really small parables. This one to get through, a little bit beefier.
Got some meat.
It is a little meat in this one. So let's dive in. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. Now when he had agreed with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said to them, You also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you. So they went. Again he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out and found others standing idle, and said to them, Why have you been standing here idle all day? They said to him, Because no one has hired us. He said to them, You also go into the vineyard, and whatever is right you will receive. So when evening had come, the owner of the vineyard said to his steward, Call the laborers and give them their wages, beginning with the last to the first. And when those who were hired about the 11th hour, they each received a denarius. But when the first came, they supposed that they would receive more, and they likewise received each a denarius. And when they had received it, they complained against the landowner, saying, These last men have worked only 1 hour, and you made them equal to us who have borne the burden and the heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen. There you go. So the parable of the laborers, or the workers in the vineyard, and that's verses 1 through 16.
Yep.
So what do you see?
Boy, there's a lot of stuff in here.
A lot of ground.
So, and immediately, I may be jumping into the middle, but as a way to start the conversation, what stuck out to me immediately is the workers attempt to define rightness.
Okay.
And we see in the parable that the definition of right is defined by the owner.
Right. Yeah.
And so in this owner, we see, as we talk about the grand story and the grand picture, we see God.
Okay. Yep.
So God will be the definer of righteousness.
Yeah.
And so as we look in here, the workers try to define what that is. And especially as you get to the end and they start talking about, like, hey, bro, come on.
Right.
You paid that guy one
Right.
whole one.
Right.
You're like, well, yeah, same as I'll pay you.
Right.
And so it's very relatable. The feeling is very relatable as we look at the goodness of God at times breaks down all of our understanding of fairness.
Yes. Yeah, the human perspective is going to be based on works. It's going to be based on effort. it is 100% as you get down to about the middle where people are being paid. So we've got that middle crowd, the 3rd, the 6th, and 9th hour. Don't really get to talk about them much. But we have the 1st and the 11th hour, the first and the last. And that's really our comparison. And looking at that, the whole thing is a comparison. The first, their beef isn't what they were actually paid. It's not what they got that's the problem. Because it even says in the very beginning of the parable, the landowner came up to them and he said, hey, I've got some work to do. It's over here. I'm going to pay you a day's wages, a denarius, a day's wages to do that. Seems fair. They took the job. No problem. We have no beef whatsoever until you realize someone else is getting a better deal than you. My deal was fine until I realized there was a better deal out there for someone else.
Yeah, I'd have taken the morning off if I knew I could have.
I would have showed up at the marketplace at about 5 p.m.
My back hurts.
Clock in for 1 hour, still earn a day's wage. Seems legit.
Read the last part of yours again, because yours has some bonus content that mine does not.
Oh, okay. I got the switcheroo on this time.
Yeah, so mine ends with, so those who are last now will be first then, and those who are first will be last, period.
I think that's the same thing mine has.
Okay. I thought you had
something else
at the end.
I'll back up and take a last run at it.
Okay.
So starting in verse 14 for me.
Okay.
So this is going to be 14, 15, and 16. It says this,
Take
what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen.
That was that last phrase. Many are called, but few are chosen.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, mine ends with, and those who are first will be last.
Okay. That's interesting. A small difference there.
Yeah. And so, again, in other episodes, I'm reading out of a New Living Translation study Bible, and you have a New King James Version.
Check.
Study Bible. Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting add-in. But yeah, I remember when we went through this in the service, it's been quite a few months ago, that it really comes down to that idea of in the kingdom, things aren't going to be what you expect them to be. In our world, we look at things as earned, achieved. We don't look at underlying circumstances. Who's best, strongest, fastest, whatever. You get the prize. That's all there is to it. And that doesn't account for any kind of grace or anything else. And yet in the kingdom, grace is the currency of the kingdom. And so it creates a different system. And Jesus is trying to draw an attention that if you guys are all walking together and you're trying to outdo each other, and you're trying to go, I'm going to place us in a pecking order of, okay, I'm attending more regularly than you, I'm Bible studying more than you, I'm in more life groups than you, so I go here in the pecking order. This is what I deserve based on how I'm performing. That's the wrong way around for the kingdom.
Right. Yeah, and it's a good thing to point out, this is not about rewards. It's not about measuring rewards, because otherwise, again, that begins to break down the whole reality of the kingdom. The idea is, it doesn't matter when you came on. This is talking about salvation. You maybe have been following Jesus for 50 years. I'm not insinuating your age. I'm just pulling a number out, okay? I just wanted to clarify. But you may have been following after Jesus for 50 years.
Right.
Here I am. I'm new. I just gave my life to the Lord. Do we not both have the same exact reward?
Right. Yeah. We have the kingdom in that greater sense.
Yeah, and we look at our journey of faith as one that we endure. It brings challenges. It brings hardship. It brings persecution.
Right.
It brings all of these things. So you have endured longer.
Right.
But we both have received the exact same reward.
Right. Yeah. I remember in studying for this previously that it's interesting because we've seen in some smaller parables that right after there's an explanation. There's a fantastic breakdown, the parable of the sower. As soon as Jesus is done, Q&A session happens, and we get the breakdown. This one, big chunky bit here, and he goes, and moving on. It says, now Jesus going up to Jerusalem, it just takes off. It moves from this discourse where he's sharing parables to where it moves over, and he starts talking about, or it moves into a narrative structure where it says, and now Jesus is on the move. He's doing some things. So, there is no unpacking of this. And in studying and looking, there's a lot of points where people kind of speculate, this might mean this, and this might be this person and stuff. But I remember just going, okay, here's a thought in Matthew chapter 19. This is what's going on. Mm-hmm. And then we flow right into chapter 20. And the important thing for us to remember is the little subheadings, the chapter breaks, all of those were added centuries later. So as Matthew's writing, he has one thought. And at the very end of chapter 19, it goes, but many who are first will be last, and the last first. Instantly moves into this story. We get down to verse 16, and it says, so. It's almost kind of a, therefore, let me wrap this thought up. Yeah. Therefore, the last will be first, and the first last. So it makes me feel like, well, whatever was going on in 19, whatever's happening there, must have led you to go,
20 fleshes out my ideas from 19.
Boom. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So, when you look over at 19, it's like, okay, what's happening there? So Jesus talks to the rich young ruler, and he's talking about, the fact that for men it is impossible to enter into the kingdom through their own power, those kinds of things, talking how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. And then Peter steps up, and Peter's just really trying. He goes, well, what about us? We gave everything up. So if it's hard for them, what do we get? Hey, I gave up everything. And so it's almost this idea of, Jesus, we're right here on the scene with you. We've been walking with you. And you remember there are times that you said hard things and people just scattered.
I'm still here.
Whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get a great discourse that crowds and crowds are following Jesus. But then he says a hard thing. He says, you'll have to eat of my flesh and drink of my blood. And people are like, deuces, we're out of here. And then Jesus actually looks over to the apostles and he goes, are you leaving too? Where else will we go?
Yeah.
We don't have anywhere to go. So now it's kind of like, well, we've been here the whole time. We've been trying hard. We've been sticking with it. So what about us? Mm-hmm. And now Jesus comes into this parable. Yeah. So it's like, I've heard some people say, well, the first hour, the beginning of the day people are the actual Jewish people who receive the law, and now the people of the church, the followers of Christ, are the 11th hour workers. I've heard, I think you were leaning towards somebody who accepts faith early in life, somebody who accepts faith later in life. I think you could probably nuance all those things and go,
sure,
that all works in a sense, but it's beyond that. It's beyond us because, this is God's story. Yep. It's about him. And so he's trying to say that in truth, I want to talk to you. Bless you.
Excuse me.
Goodness. I want to talk to you about some kingdom values regardless of who you are. Peter, you've brought up a great point. You have been toughing it out. Let me share this with you. Mm-hmm. And so, I think as we can parse it out and we can look at a lot of different things, the main thing is there are kingdom values going on here. What do we see as a kingdom value instead?
Yeah. And it's a little, it feels like a part where it's like, oh, buddy, you still don't get it. You still don't quite get it.
Close. He's getting close, but yeah.
You've been faithful. You've been here.
Right.
I understand things so differently than you do.
Right.
You are applying your perspective to things in the heavenlies,
right.
things of my Father.
Right.
It's not like that.
Right.
It's just not like that. The kingdom of heaven is like, I'm going to invite everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have to say yes. You will have to respond to my invitation.
Right. That's true.
But I am going to invite everybody.
Right. And that invitation is important because the first chunk of the parable, when we go from verse 1 through 7, it's all about invitation. You know, he goes back out and goes back out and goes back out. And I love it because it says that he finds the people idle. Mm-hmm. They're useless. They're not productive. They're not up to anything good. And then eventually, you know, he asks them, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
No one hired us.
It says in mine, why haven't you been working today? It's like, hello?
Yeah, no one's hired us.
Oh, nobody hired us.
No one hired us. Yeah.
I'll hire you.
Yeah.
So you see the invitation, they go, okay.
Right. And you know, and maybe this is a little, you know, we've talked before about, you know, you can start nuancing all kinds of individual things and maybe it starts breaking, but there's this point where as I look at this, I start thinking about, you know, there's us, the people, you know, inside of the story, and the people you have to start thinking about by the 11th hour of the day, that, you know, a 12-hour day of work, and here it is, the last hour of the day, they haven't given up. They haven't left yet. And so it makes me feel like the truth that we'll talk about is there's a longing in our heart. There's a
I'm
need.
Searching. I'm seeking.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something.
I love that idea.
And I'm just, I'm hungry. I'm in such desperate need. I mean, because if you're sitting there, you've wasted 11 hours of your day. You have nothing to show for it. And if you're thinking, well, I need to earn a day's wage, I've got to get by. Well, that hope has gone. There's
Day's
no
over.
chance. Day's over.
You got an hour left.
Who's hiring you at the last hour of the day? What do you? I need a guy to go click the lights off at the end of the day.
Right.
It will sweep up.
Whoever hires you doesn't make sense by what I understand. That's for sure.
No. Yeah. Everybody is fully engaged. They hired all the people at the beginning, so none of it makes sense even from that extent. But yet, when the owner comes by and he says, "Okay, I'm going to offer you some work because you guys have been standing here and I'll pay you whatever's fair." And they're like, okay, I need it. I need something. I am that desperate and in need. And the cool thing is that for those folks who are desperate in need, they haven't gotten anything. They're almost out of hope maybe. You know, it's just like, gosh, I just don't know what I'm ever going to do. I'm at the bottom end. I'm at the end of my rope. And yet what do they receive? They receive the fullness.
Fullness. That's the same word I was thinking of.
Right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's fair in my kingdom. In my currency, which is grace, I'll give you all of it. Fullness. Yeah.
All the way around. And it's so cool that when you're sitting here and you look at that these guys who should be without hope get the fullness. And so when we put it back into context, here's Peter. Been following you the whole time.
Dude, I said yes first. Hello.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, great. You've got to experience my fullness for so long. Right. Isn't it great?
Yeah. Isn't it great for you? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because, and, you know, when you think about it, the first workers, when they look at it, what they're looking at is the end of the game and go, I get more, right? I mean, you gave that guy a full day. And he did not. I mean, you showed him around, gave him a little orientation, and then you're like, done for the day. Let me pay her by. He didn't do anything. I get more. But I love what you just said, because Peter can get a position that so many of us would love is you walked directly with Jesus. For 3 years, you walked with him. You breathed in the fullness of him. Yes, we all have the Holy Spirit, but you got to see the man. You got to hear from him. And the first workers, the first time that the owner goes out, he talks to them and they're secure in that moment. Mm-hmm. Everybody's in the marketplace going, I don't have my own vocation. I don't have my own shop. I'm not a landowner. I don't have anything. I have to put my faith and trust in someone else to help me. And so they're all hanging out. And yet the first ones, the landowner goes, you, and you, come with me. Mm-hmm. They go, I'm safe. I'm secure for the day. I've just earned a day's wage. I know that when dark comes and I head towards home, I've got enough for another day. There's a security in that. There's a great hope in that.
Yep.
Those who weren't selected first are still in that place where maybe
They're
you don't
living
have that
in
hope.
this tension.
Right.
Yeah. It immediately makes me think of the story of the prodigal son
Okay.
with the father and his two sons. The son who stays and is faithful to the father is like Peter. It's like, I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But then there's another son that says, Dad, give me what's mine. I'm gonna go do my own thing.
Right.
Goes and escapes, is making a big old mess of his life.
Right.
And realizes, I messed up.
Right. And the
I
faithful
lost.
son has the beef because when the younger is restored back,
He goes,
yeah, I didn't get all the stuff he
and
got.
when the son that was gone comes back, the father rejoices and restores his fullness to him.
Right.
And it is a temptation of the flesh for all of us to say, hello, I've been here the whole time, and hasn't it been great? Again, you miss it. You realize that there is still a greater and greater reality of our own flesh that does not understand or think the way that God does. It's irrational to us. You didn't think this out. God, you didn't think about this. Because I got one, he got one. I put in a whole day.
Right.
He didn't.
Yeah.
You both get my fullness.
Right.
You both get all of me.
Yeah. And the problem I think, for all of us is that when we break it down and try and go from our perspective upward towards God, as we start going that, we're going the wrong way around.
Yep.
We're starting from the earthly perspective and going, okay, if this is a true thing, then, and you begin building up. Yeah, we have to go, what did God actually say? And go from his perspective and bring it downward to our best understanding. And from our perspective, it's going to be a comparative. It's what is earned. What have I accumulated for myself? And in God's case, it is, well, there's grace, and you have grace, and you have it, and you have it, fullness. And so here's Peter asking the first question, getting this parable. And one of the ways that I think we could see this maybe playing out, Peter, who's with him forever, or even better, John. John, from church history and everything, we see that John is a younger man than Peter is. And John is the last of the disciples left alive, follows Christ through thick and thin, is one of the apostles, goes out into the world, eventually exiled, lives a very long time, and is the last of them left alive. I have a feeling like he's probably missing his friends. Like, I remember when Peter and I used to do all these things, but here's John, an old man. He receives the fullness. And yet, John was there as Jesus was crucified, and he watches the exchange as the thief on the cross, as they're sitting here ridiculing, the one goes, wait a second. And in that moment, Jesus says, today, I know we just met, but today you will be with me in paradise. Last hour of his life, finds fullness. John walks his whole life, same fullness.
Yep. Yeah, it's a radical reality of the way God invites and offers the same amount of himself to all of us. And I think that's got to be the greatest encouragement for anybody who's watching this.
No doubt.
Whenever you're watching this, the reality is it's never too late. God is extending this invitation to every single one of us.
Right.
And it is worth celebrating if you've already made this decision. What an incredible journey that you've already been able to be on. And if you've yet to make this decision, this invitation is for you, and it will be an incredible journey that you get to go on when you make the decision, because you receive the same fullness despite your past history and time away from the Lord, figuring out, seeking, and waiting for answers. Here's the answer, here's the invitation, and it's for you. And so it's it's absolutely incredible what the Lord is offering each one of us. And so let's keep the conversation going. Ask questions. Let's keep talking about it. This is the stuff. This is great.
Yep.
And so let's keep talking about it. But for now, that's what we know.
This has been another episode of the Beyond Sunday podcast. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.